Ilya Lothu, Loth test me, for I am nothing. I was born nothing, and will die nothing, until I can prove myself, until I can hone myself into the sharpest of blades, the most silver-tongued of liars, and the most loyal of dogs, will I ever be a crumb more than nothing. I am a drow, what the fools who dwell on the surface call the dark elves. And I am a male, worthwhile only in the hands of my mistress. It is she who has taught me, who has shown me my place in this world, as only one step above a slave. The only option before me is to become her consort, by proving myself to be worth more alive than dead. So I eternally seek the chance to prove myself to my mistress. Ilya Lothu, Loth test me. I was born in darkness, into the underground kingdom of Mensobaranzen, the most powerful city in the Underdark, the jewel of my people. No, I apologize. The jewel of her people, for nothing in this fair city belongs to me, save what I can take, and what is given to me by my mistress. The Underdark is a realm apart from the world on the surface. Those who walk in the daylight cannot comprehend what terrors lie beneath their feet. But my people have come to dominate all of them. From the wretched mind flayers to the insufferable Durgar to even the mighty purple worm. This is what my people have accomplished, and I will play a part in furthering our supremacy. From the moment of my birth, there were no illusions given as to what I was. I was a male, a lesser drow, good only for the pleasure, entertainment, and whims of the women who ruled our society, as Loth has decreed. They are living queens, gleaming like amethysts in the dark. I and my fellow males are but blunt hunks of raw clay, worthless until it is molded by a firm, guiding hand, shaped and baked into something more, something useful, perhaps even beautiful. The city was my fire, the mistress my potter. She would wet the clay that was my very being with the whip and the knife, with blood and the word of Loth to billow the flames until I was turned into something greater than nothing. As much as a drow male can be, naturally. As anything made of dull clay, I was now a tool and a decoration. Something both pretty to look at and something to be used to fulfill a purpose. Or discarded when no longer useful or entertaining. Or worse yet, I would be stolen away if too much of either. My training was completed by the high priestesses of Loth, one of whom lets a blessed spider bite me. Loth's venomous kiss racked my brain, bestowing onto me the truth of how the Drow came into being. The Drow were not always cursed to live within the bowels of the earth. Once we were as one people, with our cousins on the surface, the High Elves, Wood Elves, and the Dark Elves, all united in a single glorious empire, one that conquered the lands, unraveled the mysteries of the high magics, and overcame the might of dragons. My people worshipped Loth, the great weaver. We respected her cunning and ambition. In those times, the mistress of lives would take a husband, Corellon, the father of all elven kind. Loth saw, however, that Corellon's carefree and undisciplined attitude was not befitting a supreme deity, and her ambitions to overthrow him and become the chief deity of elven kind was set in motion. She weaved a web of intrigue to lead other gods to fight Corellon. Then she poisoned him when he was at his lowest, and Corellon, fool that he was, had fallen for it, or would have fallen for it, if not for the intervention of other elven gods loyal to their ruler. The supreme god of all elves was furious at the betrayal. He banished Lolth from the heavens, casting her down into the black abyss. His vengeance was not complete until he had punished all mortal elves who dared to side with our mistress of spiders. He cursed all my people, and our children, and our children's children, regardless of the length of our involvement in the Weaver's schemes, forever. Our gorgeous dark olive skin became a deep, unnatural gray. Our hair, rich black like ink, became ashen white. Our eyes became so sensitive to light that the sun became a bane to us, its golden rays making us blind. We were forced underground, deeper and deeper, until we found the Underdark, a place where all manner of wretched and cursed things go. It only seems fitting we would end up here too. Our first ancestors held out hope that Corellon would forgive us, or Lolth would grant us a boon. Neither came. For Corellon's part, forgiveness was an impossibility, and the proof is in our dreams. We Drow are of elven blood, and elves do not sleep, but we do dream. When elves close their eyes, they enter into a deep trance and see visions. Visions of our past, our future, and sometimes even the memories of past lives once lived would come to us. My people no longer have such visions. All we see when we close our eyes is darkness, the deepest of shadows. We were no longer dark elves of old. We were something new, something crueler and stronger. We became the Drow. Lolth gave us no boon either. Alleviating suffering is not her way. She does not pretend that any of her faithful are any more than mere pawns in her game, flies caught in her web. For those who prove themselves to her, great power and worldly pleasures are given. For those who fail, misery and death. I know better than to invoke the Spider Queen for aid. She does not suffer the insult of helpless weaklings begging for her to save them. Those who pray to Lolth for succor are struck down by disease, sacrificed in her name, or worse, become the victim of the curse of the Drider. Ah, the Drider. Mad creatures, a melding of spider and drow, filled with only an insane hatred, a terrible hunger, and a desire to appease Lolth, none of which will ever be satiated. A most horrendous fate indeed, but fitting for the insult of a pathetic plea for help. Lolth does not give help or blessings. Lolth tests. Lolth punishes. Lolth pushes, and above all, Lolth consumes. Her nature is that of a spider, the truest and most beautiful of all creatures, the form that Lolth herself wishes to take when interacting with the mortal world. And even children know that spiders are meant to be respected and feared, not petitioned. To earn even a modicum of respect from the Great Weaver, we are meant to become like the spiders she so loves, to hunt and kill our prey through trickery and guile, to spin a web of lies and misdirection wide in complex patterns, to pump those who are foolish enough and weak enough to get caught in our webs with horrendous venom, and savor their despair like fine wine. Fear is what drives us, not love. Love is a fool's sentiment, easily tricked and manipulated. I have had love excised from me, like a cancer, along with the rest of my weaknesses. Lolth and my mistress both have tested me. Tests that I have passed, as evidenced by my still being alive and sane. Soon I was considered a blade sharp enough and subtle enough to be worth wielding, all in the name of survival and ambition. It was not long when I had to prove my training was not in vain, my mistress's time not wasted. She bestowed me a task: find her rivals and end their rise to power. My mistress will see no competition. Of course, petty assassination was an option ever on the table, but subterfuge is a far better solution in the long term. I raced through the gloom of Mensobaranzen, thieving priceless trinkets and heirlooms, collecting arcane artifacts of power, forging documents, and leaving ominous, well-crafted lies in the ears of my targets and their closest confidants. Each theft was adept, and each lie perfectly crafted, like a silvery necklace. Any good drow should know how to do that at least, male or female. All for one simple goal: control and appeasement. The rivals would pay tithes to my mistress, recognize her superiority out of fear. The fear of death, of course, but also a fear of failure. A fear of what our goddess would do if they challenged my mistress and failed. As ripples across a pond, I could see the effects of her plans, making subtle change within our great house and the great houses nearest us. I saw females beneath her bend the knee and double swear their loyalty. They were lying, of course. No true drow is fool enough to let their truths be known, or to be so lacking in ambition as to be truly loyal to any, save, perhaps, the Spider Queen. And I saw, too, other drow males, strapped naked to the altar of Loth, kept awake and alive, screaming as sacrificial knives plunged into their ribs to carve out their hearts, or have caustic poisons poured over their skin, turning them into a patchwork of scars and pustules. I think my favorite method of sacrifice to watch was the calling. First, the sacrifice is given a bath, dressed in fine silks, and given food to gorge themselves upon. This food is laced with a unique poison. Within minutes, their faces of decadent indulgence turn to one of writhing pain and terror, as thousands upon thousands of spiders pour out in waves from their mouths. The children of Loth bite maliciously as they skitter out of the victim's body. I only ever saw one being survive the calling, my mistress. She passed it as yet another of Loth's tests. Not only did she endure the agony and the fear, but she also did not harm a single tiny spider. That much was obvious. If she had harmed so much as a single leg on those little creatures, Loth would have turned her into a drider on the spot. I fear this fate. I fear the knife and the spider, and I am not ashamed to admit it. It would be a fool who does not acknowledge the existence of their own fear. I know I am always just one step away from being placed on an altar of sacrifice myself, so I ensure that every job is done perfectly, but not too perfectly. I ensure that once in a while, the most minor of details slip through the cracks. It is, as in all things, a matter of survival. The fool male who lets his talent shine like the forgotten stars attracts death, like the sounds attract a purple worm. And greater is the fool male who fails at all tasks and tests set unto him. For these idiots, their only fate is to be tossed about from one house to another until they are eventually sacrificed. So I asked Loth to test me. Ilya Lothu. But never do I try and prove myself any more than equal to those tests. The lives of drow males, of all drow, are as pieces upon a game board, moved by spider silk as Loth sees fit. the most worthless sacrificed without thought, and the most valuable targeted by those who covet your position. Female Drow will always strive for supremacy, but for we male Drow, mediocrity is the key to one's own longevity. My mistress's ultimate goal still eludes me. I doubt she will ever fully tell me, but I can hazard a guess. She wishes to see her rival, a fellow priestess of Lolth, taken off the board in this game. A priestess of Lolth has not been sacrificed for nearly 500 years. But were it to truly happen, the Spider Queen would dance on her silken stage, and if my mistress would be the one to accomplish it, she would be the highest authority in all of Mensobaranzen. And if I were a key instrument in her rise to power, oh, the rewards would be great. Ilye Lothu. Again I am tested with another task for my mistress, one step closer to achieving her goals, and thus my own. A simple one, this. Set the slaves of her rival free. It makes sense. A drow who cannot keep her slaves in line is not a true drow. I do this, letting the animals out of their cages. Beasts such as dwarves, gnomes, and even humans. I always found it strange, the differences between human males and females. They are very subtle, and in some cases, nigh impossible to perceive. But I can tell that for the most part, the male humans appear to be a bit taller, a bit more broad of shoulder and heavier set than the females. This is interesting to me, for it is the opposite of the truth of my people. Drow females are taller, stronger, and more intelligent than males like myself. Another lesson learned through all my years. Whenever I sparred with a drow female, it was only for show, a means for her to show off her martial prowess, but it had to be a true challenge. If I was overpowered too easily, I was beaten bloody for my weakness. Whenever I was fool enough to outclass my female counterparts, even slightly, I was given the whip and the knife and other crueler methods to remind me of my place. Thus has Lolth decreed it so, for the mistress of the demon web is embittered by her history with Corellon. She swore never to let another male being in creation serve as neither her equal nor her superior. To her, all male beings would be the lesser, just barely better than the beasts kept in those cages. A credo followed closely by the high priestesses and ruling females of the Drow. It has also worked our way into our very blood, as should have been made clear by my descriptions of the differences between males and females of my people. If I can keep my own piece on the board long enough, however, then perhaps Mistress will take me as her consort. Then, and only then, may I enjoy the decadence I so crave, to be part of her grand feasts, her masquerades and her orgies where the lines of pleasure and pain are blurred. Oh, truly no nobler ambition there is for a lowly male drow. But I must first continue to prove myself, naturally. Ilye Lothu. Lolth test me, for only through her tests can any drow achieve anything, and I wish to achieve much. Ilye Lothu. 1 foot out of place could see me sacrificed to the Queen of Spiders, or worse yet, my mistress may curse me with Lolth's melding, a powerful spell that will chain my will to that of my mistress by magical bonds, turning me into a true living puppet, letting her cast spells through my essence and see through my eyes. I would not mind such a fate, if I could only become her consort first. That would make me a little less disposable, at least. I wonder if a desire to escape such fates is what leads some of my kind to rebel. Cursed Dritz doubtless thought this way. But what the fool fails to realize is that we are all born Drow. Born unwanted by our Creator, hated by our surface-dwelling kin, and all others who walk in the sun. We come into creation, cradled by dark, and strung with silk like puppets. There is no escaping this web, only places of decadence and pleasure to be found within her web. I know I am only a male, that I am only slightly better than nothing, unless my mistress takes me as her consort, and allows me to feel the taste of wine, the pleasures of the flesh, in addition to the tang of poison and the sting of the whip. But, until such a day, Ilye Lothu, and tell me your bidding, my mistress. Hey everyone, it's Paul here. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Through the Eyes of a Monster. I certainly enjoyed writing it. You guys wanted a Drow video, and the Drow are really awesome, but I can't do a girl, female voice to save my life. A big special thank you to all my patrons out there. You guys are amazing. And of course, a major thank you to all my viewers. You are the reason I can do this in the first place. And hey, if you haven't already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share the video around with your friends, and leave a comment down below. It can be about Drow, it can be about D&D, it can be about frickin' mushrooms. And as always, I will see you in the next one. Cheers!